Hello and welcome back to our series on SQL interview question and answers. So in this part of the video, we'll take up an interview question, which is we have to write an SQL query to find and remove the duplicate entries from our database. So the condition is we have our duplicate entries, but not all the columns of our duplicate entries are same. So if you see on the left hand side, we have the table EMP, which is the employee table. And in this table, the entry for the employee Aviral is duplicated, but only the name, age and salary of Aviral is duplicated and not the employee ID. So the other case could be that all the columns are duplicated, but that's a different set of problems. We'll try to solve these type of problems in this particular video. So let's jump on to our MySQL workbench. So I have already created the database and I'm using the same database here as well. I'll create a table EMP with all the 4 columns that were given in the question, and then I'll insert the values which were provided into the question itself. Okay, so everything is done now. Now I'll just show you the data in our table EMP, and you see we have the data entries as given in the question, and for Aviral we have duplicate entries. Okay, now we need to find the duplicate entries and delete the row from this table which is duplicated. Alright, so in order to do that, I'll show you 2 different methods. So the first method is basically in order to delete anything from a given table, what we do is we use delete from command. Then we have to write the table name from which we need to delete the rows, and we have to provide a condition with the where clause, which says whenever this condition is true, that row will be deleted. Okay, so I'll use the condition where employee ID is in the list of all the employee IDs that I want to delete. So for that, I need to first find the employee IDs that I need to delete. That is, I need to find the duplicate entries. I need to put them into this list, and then I'll just provide it into this condition. Whenever we have employee ID which is there in the list, it would be deleted from the table. The second method would be just opposite of this, where instead of using the in option, I'll just use the not in option with the employee ID. So I'll just say I need to delete the rows where the employee ID is not in this list, and because of that I'll just need to provide the employee IDs that I need to keep and not the employee IDs that I need to delete. So these are 2 different methods that we can use to solve this type of problems. So let's first see with the first method. So I need to find the employee IDs that I need to delete. Okay, so I'll show you how we can do this using the row number function. So row number is a window function in SQL, and we'll just go step by step and understand how it works. Okay, so I'll just do select star from EMP. It just shows me all the data. Now I need to add an additional column based on which I can decide if this entry is duplicate or not. Okay, so I'll use row number for that, and what it will do is it will just provide a number to each of the rows over the, so I need to provide based on which column I need to provide the row number. So I just do it order by employee ID. So it will just select this column, and based on the values inside in this employee ID, it will just provide me the row number. So if I just write a temporary name to this column, which is row num, and you see we have the row numbers provided for each of the entries, but that's not what we want. So what we want is we need to provide row numbers based on if the entry is duplicated or not. For that, I'll use a partition command. I'll say partition all the row numbers based on, so I'll use partition by, and I'll use the column name, age, salary. So I'll use the combination of these 3 columns as a single unit, because these columns are the columns which are repeated together. Okay, so whenever you have, if let's say only the name and age were repeated, you just use name and age and not the salary. Okay, so you have to use all the columns based on which your entry is duplicated. Okay, and so if I do this, what it will do is, if we see for the Aviral, the name, age and salary is same, so it will group them into a single partition, and in that partition it will provide a row number to it. So if I just run this, you see for Aviral it has provided me row number 1 and 2. And now based on this column, I can say if the row number is greater than 1, it's a duplicate entry. Easy. So I can just put a where clause, but since I'm using a window function, I can't use the where clause in the same query itself. So I need to write another query which will just select from, and then I'll just put this query as a sub query to the main query, and I just say whatever the output of this query is stored as table 1, and I can just do select star from this table where row num is greater than 1. Okay, now if I just run this command, you see we have the duplicate entry that we have identified. Okay, but if you see in our first method, we say we have to find the employee IDs that we need to delete. So I'll just do one change here. I'll just select only the column employee ID. So now I have the employee ID that I need to delete. Then it's simple. So I'll just provide this structure here. I say delete from EMP where my employee ID is in the list of the list that I have just provided. Okay, so this command should delete the entry with the employee ID 998. That's the duplicate entry that we have. Now if I run this, so it has been executed successfully, and if I just show you the updated table, you see we don't have any entry for Aviral. Okay, that's great. So now I'll just add the duplicate entry again so that we can use other method as well. So if I just use select star from EMP, you see we have again our duplicate entry. Now in the first method only, where we identify the employee IDs to delete, we can use another technique using the group by command. So what I'll just show you how we can do the same thing using the group by command. So I'll just start from the basics, select star from EMP, it will show me all the data, and then I can group these values based on name, age, salary together, and I can then do an aggregate of count. You can write any number inside this, that doesn't matter. So it will just count based on whatever the number of rows are there in that particular group. So if I just run this, you'll see since Aviral is the group, okay, so there is an error. It says okay, I can't provide all the values in the select command when I have a group by function. So I can only provide the columns that are used in group by and the aggregate column. So if you see, since Aviral is only entry which has 2 rows in the group of name, age and salary, so it will give me count of 2 and all other entries are giving me count of 1. Now I can just put a condition that, so remember whenever we have to put a condition on the grouped rows, we use having clause and not the where clause. So I'll just say having count of 1 greater than 1. Those rows will be identified as duplicate entry group. Okay, so I'll just run this, and you see the Aviral is the group which has count greater than 1. So this is the group that has duplicate entries. Okay, so if we have 3 duplicated entries, then there the count would be 3, and similarly for other number of duplicate entries as well. Now what I need to do is I need to just select the employee ID that I need to delete. But remember, this particular group has 2 IDs. So I just need to use an aggregate function which selects only one ID. So I can use maximum of the employee IDs which are present in the group or minimum of those employee IDs. Okay. And if you see, this is the employee ID for this particular group which I need to delete. Now I can just remove these 3 values and it will show me the employee ID that I need to delete. The disadvantage of using this type of technique is it will not give me all the duplicate entries, but it will just give me the maximum of all the employee IDs that are present in the group. Okay, so if we have more than 2 duplicate entries, it will not work. Okay, so now I have employee IDs that I need to delete. I'll just use this structure that we already discussed, and I'll just say delete from my table EMP where employee ID is in this list. Okay, and if I just put a semicolon and run this command, so you see the command will not run. And why is that so? So this is specific to MySQL only. So what the issue is, whenever we delete anything from our table EMP, if we are using the same table inside our subquery, the MySQL will give us an error. It will say you can't specify the target table EMP for update in the from clause. So we have to use a separate table in our from clause. So that's it, this query is successfully executed. For that, there is a workaround. I can just create a temporary table. You could create a normal table as well. I'll just provide an EMP temp, but why I'm using a temporary table is because generally temporary tables are deleted whenever we have ended the session. So they are not stored permanently in our database, but as a temporary table. Okay, so if I just create this table right here, so it's been successfully created, and I use this table now, which is the temporary table in our from clause, then it should run. So if I just run this, you see we have successfully executed the command, and if I show you what are the data in our EMP table, the duplicate entries have been deleted. Okay, now it's a good practice to drop this EMP temp uh, just for an additional layer of safety, and I'll just drop it. So this is how we select our duplicate entries, and then we use this particular structure to delete the rows that are duplicated. Okay, now let's move on to the second method. In this method, we just need to find the employee IDs that we need to keep instead of finding the employee IDs that we need to delete. Okay, unlike the previous case. And this is a simple and effective solution. So what I'll do is I'll use the group by command for that, and I'll just say group by based on the column name, and I'll just first let me just show you the content of my table. So this is the table, and now I'll group based on these three columns as we did before, which is name, age, and salary. And once we group this, whatever we have the values for employee IDs in that particular group, I'll just select the minimum of all the employee IDs. So for Aviral, we have two rows, and in this particular group, I just need to select the employee ID which is the minimum. Okay, which is on the top side. So it will select the minimum of employee ID from EMP, and then it will just group them. So if I show you the result, these are the employee IDs that are there based on this particular aggregate function, and these are also the employee IDs that we need to keep. So whatever employee IDs, let's say if Aviral had maybe more than 2 employee IDs, maybe we had 3 duplicate entries, so it will remove all the other employee IDs and it will keep just the minimum of all the employee IDs. So it will work if we have more than 2 duplicate entries, unlike our previous technique. So in our previous technique, as we told, using the group by, it will not work for more than 2 duplicate entries, while this row number will work for more than 2 duplicate entries. Okay, so this is also a simple and effective method. Now I just need to provide these employee IDs in this basic structure that we discussed. So I'll just say delete from EMP where employee ID not in this particular list. So I need to keep this list. So whatever is there not in the list, I just need to delete them. So it says select from group by name, age, and salary. But if I run this again, we have the same issue as before. We can't specify the target table EMP for the update as well in our from clause. So we have just workaround. So I'll just create a temporary table again, EMP temp. I'll just drop the table at the end of my query, and what I'll do is I'll just, instead of using EMP, I'll use the EMP temp to select my minimum employee ID, and just I first need to run all of these together. So it has completed successfully. Now if I just show you the output of this query, the duplicate entry for Aviral has been deleted. So that's how we solve these type of problems in SQL. But remember, only because of the employee ID column, which was not duplicated in the duplicated entry, we could use these techniques to solve such problems. But somehow, if all the columns are duplicated, then we have to use different strategies, which I'll cover in the next video. For now, thank you for watching.